hippies are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends.
Welcome back to another episode of Professional Hippies. We're your host. I am Colton. This is Dylon, and we are professionals today, I'd say. No, it's going to trend more hippie. Stay tuned. Figure it out. If you don't know us, this is your first episode. Hey, welcome into the hippie herd. Term pending on that one. We like to bridge the gap between professionals, whatever that might mean to you, stocks, and hippies like to operate in spiritualism. We like to meet you in the middle, somewhere in there. Today we're going to wrap a little about camping. We got some other cool stuff that we want to dig into and get your opinions on. I'd like to open it up after our sponsor. If you need to trust strangers because strangers are dangerous, head on over to testkitplus.com/professional hippies, and you too can trust strangers. That's their slogan, not mine. Strangers are cool, like hanging out with them, but if you're going to take stuff that's going to alter your consciousness, test it before you ingest it. Eh?
Hear that, Ebor? Yeah.
Have you heard of Ebor? Have you heard of Whataburger? Does Whataburger have a slogan? Do you know?
Just like you like it. I think
that's Burger King.
You sure?
Burger King is any way you want it, right?
No, the Burger King is any way you want it or any way you like it or something like that.
Just the way you like it. And McDonald's is just scaring children with that clown. I don't know if the clown's still a relevant thing, but
we build a bigger, better burger just like you like it.
Yeah, there's probably a reason why that's not memorable. I mean, that's just...
It was always memorable for me, just like you like it.
Honey butter chicken biscuit is memorable for me.
Honey butter chicken biscuit.
Actually, it's not, though, because every time I've had that, you're the only person I've eaten Whataburger with sober.
Wow.
Only time. Actually, yeah. Well,
I can eat it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's disgusting. So, hey, tell me, Dylon, and all our fans out there, what have you been up to this week? There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, but holy bananas, man. You had yourself an adventure.
I had a nice little real life adventure out
And the cool part is, by the way, just so everybody knows, I've been waiting to hear this too, so that I get to indulge in his experience. Where were you at? In the Appalachian Mountains?
Yeah, so the Appalachian Mountains, Rome Mountain area, up in North Carolina, Tennessee area. So over COVID, remember way back, Colton, we went backpacking and we ended at Station 19E Hostel up there. That was kind of like our last stop. And we came from the south going north. I decided to come from the north going south. And decided about to do a 30 mile hike coming from Dennis Cove Trailhead all the way down to 19E. And I started Wednesday evening, and I ended there Saturday late afternoon. Well, yeah, mid-afternoon for about basically 30 miles for that hike. And so in between companies right now, I start with a new company on Monday, ended with my last company about a week and a half ago. And was like, I've always wanted to go hike by myself out on, just do a hike by myself, because one day I want to do a through hike, and you're pretty much doing that by yourself unless you're catching up with people. And so I wanted to go just hiking by myself and just see what that experience was like. And it's been a couple of months out since my knee surgery, and I wanted to prep for a bigger hike I'm doing out in Northern California later this year. So it just seemed like, a perfect scenario to go do it. And so, yeah. Kind of a last minute trip. The unfortunate part was it kind of was planned a little bit last minute, so my pack was heavier than I wanted it to be. So I had to gather some stuff in North Carolina, Asheville, at the REI, get that equipment together. I didn't really have too much time to kind of look through it.
What was your pack weight?
When I weighed it at the house before putting everything in there, more stuff in there in Asheville, it was at 23 pounds, something like that. So I'm guessing after I put everything in there, it probably came out to way heavier than it should have been. 40 pounds is my guess. It was a pretty heavy pack.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah.
I was like 23, you're good, to up to 30, 35, but
But once I added like food, I added a water filter in there. I added some sunblock, things like that I thought I would need, out there. That's what I went. So I booked. You get out there, right? And so when you're going hiking by yourself, you park your car somewhere. I parked it at Station 19E, and then asked the guy Dave who runs the hostel.
Is that the guy that I met?
Yeah, and he's got
shout
a
out
crazy.
to Dave.
He's got a crazy backstory, by the way. He opened up to me about his backstory. He is like the guy from that has all that land in Tennessee we shot the fireworks off of.
Uh-huh.
Kind of the same type of person of like problem solved and just like made it to this thing now. It's like, what the hell, dude? I was like, there should be a little docuseries on you, man. He's like, I got a pretty crazy story. Huh? I was like, fuck yeah, you do. Like, this was a 30-minute ride to get to where you need to drop me off at.
Yeah.
I just felt like I heard a snippet of it. So he has to shuttle me out there, and I booked it for 5 o'clock, and I get there around 3 o'clock, and I was like, hey, Dave, what's up? He saw me, and he goes, all right, man, like, I heard him on the phone with his wife, and she was like kind of chewing him out that he planned this shuttle ride. And so I guess they had a date that night or something. And I could hear her on the phone. She's like, it's going to take an hour to get there, and then it's going to take an hour back. And he's like, it's only 30 minutes to get there. And she's like, I don't care. And so he's like, all right, man, we got to hurry up. So I'm like, now I have like no time to kind of like understand the trail or anything. What's to come? Because I thought
your
could
prep was like, you're going for it.
I thought I could prep with him like, hey, what's the trail like? What's going to be out there? Because I've never hiked this one before. And he was like, hey man, you got to go. We got to go. We got to get out there. And I was like, all right. So I just start throwing everything I think I might need out there. And I learned this later on. Like, for example, right, just something that I could have planned ahead for. This trail was called the Green Tunnel. Uh-huh. Right. And it's called the Green Tunnel because it's just so dense of a forest that barely any sun is coming through.
Gotcha.
Like, I didn't need sunblock.
So you got an extra pound in the sunblock, maybe.
Sunblock. I didn't need my solar charger, in order to make that happen. A power bank, because like there was no sun anywhere. And if there was sun, you put it down, it just moves every 20 minutes, So, yeah. So there was just a lot of like, not as much prep as I wanted to do. Which is
vastly different than the section we did, because it'd be like forest and then open plains, forest, open plains. So
correct.
You just had kind of crowded canopy the whole way through?
The entire way through. It wasn't until the end, right? And I'll get to that here in a minute. There was a few meadows at the end. And so so we start that first night, and he drops me off, and I'm like, all right, here we go. I want to just get a couple miles in to the top of the ridge so I can, he said the most I got out of him was it's going to be mostly ridge hiking most of the way. And I was like, all right, cool. I haven't been able to get acclimated because I literally came from the plane to hit Dave and put me on the mountain. So I'm coming from below sea level and now starting at, I don't know how high above the sea level, probably a couple thousand feet above sea level, and immediately start hiking. So he's like, oh yeah, the first waterfall, the water source you'll hit, there's plenty of water along the way, no problem on this trail. And I think, cool, okay, I don't have to worry about it. The first water source that I'll hit is Laurel Falls, I think is what it was called. And so I get to the little peak. It's probably about 7 o'clock now. And it goes, okay, the Laurel Falls. I come to the cross section. Laurel Falls is about a mile
We're
down
at
the
7
way.
p.m.?
7 p.m. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, and Laurel Falls is about 1 mile down the ridge, down this trail to get to the falls. I thought, cool, okay, this is probably a nice little fall area. There might be camping down there. If not, I'll find a little camping spot. So I hiked down there with my full pack, by the way, because I just started. And it turns out this is a hell of a hike to get down. This is a 1 mile, like, steep going down, climbing over rocks to get down to this thing. And this is getting bad in my head. I'm like, it better be some camping down here because this is not going to be fun. And I get down there, and of course there's no camping. It's just like shrub everywhere. Like the mountain peak's like this, so you can't camp on it.
Was the water source a mile detour?
Yeah.
Oh. So
to get there.
Right.
So 1 mile to get there, and then a mile back to get back from that.
Ooh.
I didn't think it was going to be that steep or like long. Like I thought it was just be like, oh,
because you're doing ridge hiking.
Yeah, so I thought it was going to be some like, oh, we'll have some switchbacks and stuff. No, this was like some hiking over rocks, climbing over rocks to get down there. Like, it was not fun. So I get down there. Now it's like, 7:20. Probably takes me 20 minutes to get down there. I can't remember. And now I have to, mind you, it's a dense forest. So yeah, the sunset sets at 8:30-ish, but it's starting to get darker and darker pretty quick within here. So I'm like, shit, all right, I got to figure out the water filter I just bought. I literally... I already took it out of the box, so I just have it in this thing. So I have to figure out the water filter real fast. I'm like, all right, da-da-da-da. I couldn't even have time to read the instructions. I'm like, all right, this probably goes here, this goes here, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I figure it out. All right, cool. Get my water, drink my water. All right, we're good. Damn, I got to hike all the way back up to the top of this cross section. I am dying because I'm still getting acclimated to I am breathing heavy getting out of this thing, right? So I make my way up to the ridge finally and get up to the cross section and go another little 1/10 of a mile up to the ridge. And I go, okay, let's find a camping spot for the night. And I can't find a camping spot on top of the ridge anywhere. So I go, okay, I'm just going to blaze my own trail here and find one. I go up to the top of the ridge. I find a nice flat area. And I thought, oh, cool, okay. I got a nice flat area. It's on top of the ridge. It looks over. And I look down to my left, and there's a whole pile of bear shit. Like right there. I'm like, well, this isn't where I'm camping. So I go back out to the trail, and I start hiking down the trail again, thinking I might run into a campsite. I haven't run anything yet. And I just see it off to the right, like someone had some trees had fallen down on a path, but I can see what looks like either a game trail or an old path. And I just start walking down this path. It's obviously some old hiking trail or an old 4-wheeler trail. I don't know. It's been definitely like 10 years.
By the way,
since
for anyone that is not familiar with backpacking, like rugged terrain, out there, solitude kind of camping, when you are going through the trails and you're trying to find camping, there's like established camps that'll show up on all trails. But typically what you're going to find for camping is just a very unsuspecting, you could totally breeze by. If you're not looking for just like a slight cut off the trail, you'll breeze by most campsites. So they're not like camping here, neon signs. It's just, you're following kind of intuition. You're like either some deer or something uses this trail, or people have just done exactly what you're doing and said, hey, I got to make camp. That looks flat in that direction.
That direction, I'm going that way. And those are the ones you typically want to find because that's where it's going to be easy to get wood. The ones that are marked on all trails or the other ones, like all the woods, a lot of it's been used in that area, whatever. So I go down this trail. It's not a camping trail. Like this trail just keeps going and going. So I go about a quarter mile into it and I just find a flat spot on the trail and I go, okay, I'm going to camp here. And I set up all my stuff, make myself a nice fire, just get everything going for the evening. And I start setting up my stuff. And I just remember I started hearing like things walking in the night, around me. And I'm like, that's loud. That's a loud walking thing I'm like, that's not a deer because a deer's quieter than that. So I'm like, it's either a bear, a squirrel that's out at night, a raccoon, something like that. So I get outside and I'm like, look, and it sounds like one's over here. Then there's like another one over here. And I'm like, am I being surrounded right now? Like just out of nowhere. And I'm like looking through and I'm pointing the flashlight, trying to look. There's no eyes coming back at me. And then I follow the noise on the ground. And it's these big black beetles, like that big. They're just making all the noise in the world, just through the leaves, and it just sounds like something huge walking through the forest. So I'm like, great.
Your senses are heightened because you're out there by yourself. So you're like, hey, I need to know.
Around me.
I need to know
what that
if
is.
I'm good.
Yeah. So it storms in the middle of the night. Mind you, I haven't really slept that much that week. So I wake up the next morning, probably about 11:30, and I look up and it's definitely about to storm. And I'm like, shit, I need to get on the trail. I need to get hiking. Like I need to get going. So I start packing up all my stuff as fast as I can, just so like I'm trying to beat the rain so all my stuff doesn't get wet. And I get all my stuff packed. I get on the trail, and as soon as I get on the trail, it starts to pour down raining. I'm like, I don't mind hiking through the rain. That's fine. I'll deal with that. But I just start hiking through, through the forest, down the trail. going.
You got cover too, right? So the cover should help if it's
Cover definitely helped
a
a little bit. Yeah, for sure. Like it was thick. Like it was thick above me. It takes a while to get to the ridge. I'm talking like a whole day to get to the top of this ridge. Along the way, I am not finding any water along this path to get to there. It turns out the first, like, I don't know, 12, 13 miles, there's not much water source at all. It's just like that water falls
all along the way. Yeah, you'll be good.
You'll be good. You'll be good. And it turns out there was, after we got past the second day, I go into the third day and there's water everywhere. Like there's streams, there's whatever. So the second day I'm like, all right, this has turned into a problem. Like I run out of water while I'm hiking and I am not coming across
a problem.
It turns into a problem, right? And so I'm like, I got to find, it's now turned into, I go to All Trails. Thankfully my phone is still working with power.
Oh, you didn't download you did download it, but you got to conserve battery.
I got to conserve the battery. Correct. Right. Yeah. And so I start looking at, okay, here's a water source here with a stream, but I've got to make it to this crossroad. It's like a service road. Then I got to hike down the service road in order to get to this river spot, I guess. Right. So, I mean, it's going to be like a 45-minute hike to get down there to this thing. So I go, okay, I finally make it to the crossroad. I'm tired as hell because it's been all uphill trying to make it to this spot. I take out my day pack, my water filter, everything. I put it in the day pack. And I throw my backpack off to this, off the trail so it's hidden. No one comes through and jacks it. And I just start hiking down this service road until I can hopefully make it to there. But here's the interesting part is I go, okay, I'm getting a little desperate for water. So decisions start not being a little clear. This was interesting. I go, okay, I'm on the trail, but if I actually cut through the woods through here, I can get down there a lot quicker, right? So I go, okay, I'm just looking at it, and I look down the path, and I'm like, it's pretty thick down there. I can try to navigate. So I start. I mean, it's steep going down this thing. I start going down it. I get through the thicket of stuff. It starts getting thicker and thicker, and in my head I go, this is how you don't get found.
Yeah.
This is how they find your pack, and then they don't find you until years later. So I go, you know what? Let's. We're not making we're making not tactical decisions here. We're going into weird survival mode that shouldn't be happening right now. So
yeah, you're hypothermic and you're taking your clothes off.
Yes, things aren't going good. So I go, okay, Dylan, we're gonna go back up. We know this trail. We're going to go just hike that trail till we get down to it. So I hike back up. When we get back on the trail, about a half mile more down, I come across an old, where someone built a drain under the road. So the road was built over the drain. And then there's just a nice little stream. And that's that video I sent you where I was like, I found water. And that water.
I had no idea what that video meant to you.
That's what I meant was like, I found water. Holy shit. So it was just a nice little stream coming out from the mountain. But where that water was surrounded by these plants that if you left your skin brushed up against it long enough, they just shot something out at you that they were like little stingy things. I don't know what screaming memes or something. I don't know what they were. Right. But if you just brush up against it, it released some sort of like seed that like stuck into your skin, and it felt like bee stings all over you. And then it would stay for like, 10 minutes, and then it would just kind of go away, but it wouldn't leave marks or anything either. It just sucked. I can still remember feeling it, but this water source was surrounded by these plants. Right. So in order to get to the water, I have to go cutting down these plants in order to get, so I just start slashing with my knife. Like, get out of here. I just kind of deal with it, right? And then I finally get to the water, and that's where you saw I cleared it all out, and I have my nice little pocket to get my water. So I got my water, happy with that. I get back up, and I told Dave later about that, and he's like, ooh, I would not be going hiking around service roads around those mountains. You don't know who will find you up in there. I was like, Dave, you told me there'd be water everywhere, buddy. I was just going off of what you said. You know, I'm not a through hiker. I don't hike 20 miles and I could be
What is
10
it about
miles.
service roads that is that like a
It's
known
just,
danger? Like
no, it's
like
just, just who knows? I mean, you know, from that, like who knows what's up in those mountains? They're service roads. I call them service roads. It could be a private road
sure.
to somebody's residence way up in the middle of nowhere, right? Like I crossed paths sometimes where they were just like, obviously they're just 4-wheeler paths.
Yeah.
Back there. Like they're just someone's private land with 4-wheeler paths. So, you know, I call them service roads, but who knows really what they are.
Yeah. Hills have eyes.
Hills has eyes. There we go. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's that country. That's where that is. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So I find the water, I get going hiking again. And then it's about 6:30 and I come across, probably about 9-10 miles in now. It's been all uphill to get here. And I finally make it to the ridge, hike the ridge a little bit, make it to my first shelter. So sometimes they have shelters along the way. Mm-hmm. And the shelter's a nice area. It's called Laurel Gap, I think is what it was called, shelter. It's great. It's got a nice open area. And then, but up the hill, just a little up the hill is a nice little camping spot. And I thought, I don't want to stay here. I kind of want my own privacy for the evening. So if anyone else comes along, they can take the shelter. I'm going to camp up here. A lot of my stuff is wet from like sweating all day and everything, from the news of the what everything was going to be like, you know, the weather. It seemed like it was going to be good that evening. So I was like, I'll hang out my clothes so they can dry. I'm going to get all my stuff set up and camp. It's kind of like the first time I've had a chance to like rest for a second, you know, since just going since I left St. Pete. So I enjoy my evening, cook my dinner, just relax, get my bearings together, and go to bed at like 11:30 or something like that. And I go, okay, I'm going to wake up in the morning, probably like 7, 8, and get back on the trail. I fall asleep, and I wake up at 2 a.m. to literally hell on earth around me. So there is a massive lightning thunderstorm that has now come across into the mountains. There is lightning all around me now, to the point like it is torrential downpour. It's not even wind. It's just torrential downpour on my tent and lightning, to the point I'm like covering my ears because like there's literally, it's like if you're outside and it just scares you type of lightning, that's everywhere around me now. And I'm just like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening right now? I should have been in the shelter for one, damn it. But now I'm stuck here. And so first thing in my thought is like, all my clothes are getting soaked. Damn it. But I'm not going to get out of the tent. I'm just, it's 2 a.m.
You're just hoping your shit's going to be there when you wake up.
I just hope it's there. Has it blown away or whatever? And I cover my ears because I'm like, at this point, just strike me if I'm going to die, but let me get some sleep out of this. I'm like, whatever. So every now and then the lightning would be so close. I'm on an air mattress that I have. The whole ground underneath me would rumble. And he goes, I talked to Dave about that later. He goes, yeah, those mountains are just full of iron. So everything just rumbles through the mountain when the lightning strikes pretty close. It just, the whole ground just, surges. Mm-hmm. So that was crazy feeling that. And some people I talked to the next, a couple of days later about it. By the way, I didn't see anyone the whole day prior and the whole next day. Like that's how far out there just by myself I am during all this. So did you take like emergency service, anything? Or no, the iPhones now have that built in though. They have that. They did, but system. I didn't bring anything like that with me back there. No,
Wouldn't have been
I'll be fine.
Idea.
Probably not. Nice little Jeep. I've wanted to get this GPS thing that's like $400. That's really nice. It's like that big. But I was like, I'll figure it out.
If Homeboy's throwing his pack off and trying to blaze his own trail, wouldn't be a bad idea to get a SOS Garmin.
just to have it, just in case. And they said too, and I looked on the trail, reviews that you wouldn't see many people on this. All the thru hikers, by the way, started in February ish. Mm-hmm. And for folks that don't know, a thru hiker, what that means is somebody that's going to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. And what you're doing is hiking very, very light. And your only time you're getting off the trail is when you're stopping at a hostel or something, to gather supplies,
We'll pass through town,
gather some, take a shower, get a nice meal before you hop right back on the trail. So, you're through hiking the entire trail. And so most people start on the Appalachian Trail in February. Half of them kind of fall off around Virginia, probably about a few months in, and not many are making it all the way up into Maine, I think is where it ends at.
That's because it's like a 6-month journey, right? On average.
Yeah. And it's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Like there's no consistency.
A lot of injuries are typically what stop people. It's like a lot of mental, but like I've seen a lot of people get jacked up with like foot rot and gnarly blisters, sprains.
Chafing. I chafed really bad just after a few days, but that was because all my clothes were freaking wet. But imagine, someone that's through hiking, their clothes are constantly wet trying to make it through there, and you slip tons of times when it gets wet, mind you, like you're going down very steep sometimes. So you're slipping on mud, you fall a couple of times. Like I've stumbled, kind of went into a tree, and a couple of times the stick would just stick you. And you're like, oh, that's fine. But imagine if you went into that harder, who knows,
Oh, a beautiful time to recover from a knee injury and go out there by yourself. Yeah, it's ideal.
A beautiful time. So, by that second day, it was first night. By the second night, I wake up the third morning. My phone's pretty much dead now. Like everything's died and it's gone. So I just know I'm here, and on the Laurel Gap shelter, there's a sign that says 19E, which is where I'm trying to get to, 18 miles. The next shelter before that, 9 to 10 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So
you basically got 9 miles to go to your rest stop, and then another 9 to get to your destination to meet up with Dave.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
So I go, okay. Thankfully at the shelters, they have good water spots, of course. So this water spot kind of had one of those. Remember that pipe that came out of the mountain last time when you filled up? It was one of those, and you just had to hike down the bottom.
How much water were you packing with? A gallon or?
Usually 2 to 3 liters is what I had.
3 liters. Yeah.
Yeah. Just depending on, because there would be gaps sometimes when you were hiking the ridge, and it'd be many miles, just like sometimes 5 miles. You're just hiking the ridge, and I just wanted to enjoy water, but you couldn't get to a water source.
Mm-hmm.
But in this gap, I realized there was tons of water between, like there was nice springs, water, tons of it, right? You cross plenty of streams. So at this point, I started carrying 2 liters in my camel pack. So at this point, I don't know exactly where I'm at along the trail, because I've lost now my signal on everything, and I'm just going, and I come across my first person in 3 days that I've seen, and it was some like 75-year-old lady just out there backpacking by herself. I was like, hello, how are you? You're the first person I've seen in 3 days. There's no one back there, by the way. So she's like, oh, okay. And I started asking her, you know what time it is? Do you know where are you coming from? Do you know how far to here? I had only hiked about 4.6 miles. So I had, pretty much halfway to go in order to get to the shelter. And I keep going, and I start get closer to the shelter, but I am cursing up a storm, because I'm like, I've put in enough work to be here now. Like I know,
because you're flying blind. You don't know where, like, how many more miles you got. Yeah.
I have no clue, man. Like, but in my mind, I'm like, I have put in, it's like you're on a tripping on acid or something, and you're like, I've done the work. I'd like to stand now, please.
Yeah, get me out of here.
Get me out of here. I just wanted to get to the shelter because I wanted to dry things off. I'm still hiking with everything waterlogged from the night before, from having to wring it out, So I make it to
some weight.
Yeah, so I make it to the shelter, and I get everything spread out. I got a tent put up, and this was a cool little 3-story shelter. It was nice. And
seen a 3-story shelter.
I didn't either until this one. This was cool, and I got everything spread out and chilling. And all of a sudden, I hear someone coming down the trail. I'm like, oh, I'm a second person I've gotten to see this whole time, and it's just some teacher on her break. That's just, she decided to do this over the summer while she was on her break. And she was like, oh, hello. And obviously I could tell she wanted to use the shelter, and I have all my shit just spread out. And I was like, I'll start getting everything undone. And I am hurting. I like get up, I start getting everything. She's like, no, take your time. I'm like, it's about to be dark. You need to get your stuff like put out. So I get all my stuff to the second level, and it was cool to get just to talk with her, and you know, her husband pushed her to come out and do this, and her whole story why she's doing with her daughter and everything, blah blah blah. But cool catching up with her, and just like a weird thing happened that night with my air mattress. You know, if anyone's ever seen an air mattress that has like cells in it when you blow it up, and like I was like laying down on my mattress and my back just went bloop, the whole thing. My air mattress like blew up and 3 of the cells merged, and they created a lump into the air mattress. And I was like, what the hell is this? But the mattress didn't lose air.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Like
just
the whole
those little cells collapsed in on each other, or like the membrane separated or something.
Yeah, but the rest of the air mattress didn't lose air. It just got bigger. And I was just like, this is some mountain magic bahoonery right here. I don't know what this is. That turned into a feet problem. I just turned that thing around. I'm like,
1,000%. You're like, you know what? Yeah, just flip that bad boy around.
That's a feet problem for later. Yeah, so thankfully that was the last night, so I don't care about the air mattress after that. So get all of my stuff the next day and go hiking out. And I have, now there are 9 miles to go. And I am, again, like I'm starting to chafe like a motherfucker, like really bad at this point. Like to the point I started having to get a moleskin, and because everything's wet. I can't, like, even I had everything hung up overnight, like everything. Underwear, everything, and it still didn't dry. Like that's how moist like this area is. Like there's no sun coming through. It's just a very moist area and nothing dried. So I'm hiking in wet underwear now.
Sick.
Still, and it's just like I got to the point where it was so bad I had to get moleskin out and start like wrapping it around my getting the cloth to wrap it around so it would stay.
So moleskin is it's like how would you describe it? It's a second skin, is what it's referred
it's
to
a little. It's not hairy, but it feels like it's got a little bit of hairiness on the skin, and it
like
just allows
tape. It's like
it allows things to glide over
version. It. Yeah,
very very easily. And so I put some of that on, and that kind of helped for a while until we got closer to the end, and man, I started cursing up a storm to myself, like, damn it, why am I here? Why am I doing this? I am getting tired at this point. Like I'm hiking with the pack. This is 30 miles.
You got no choice. You got to finish it. That's
I have to finish
beautiful part. Yeah.
I thought I would finish Friday night, so I booked my flight out Saturday at like 1:00. Right. I didn't get out of the woods until 3 or 4 o'clock. On Saturday. So I've missed my flight and I have no way to find a signal. Yeah. So she tells me, by the way, because she's coming from the south. I'm coming from the north.
Right.
So I asked her, like, hey, how much, what did you see along the way? Because I don't have a signal to find out. She goes, oh, you're going to cross a few meadows. You're going to cross a meadow. And then the meadow is kind of uphill-ish. And then you'll cross a forest. And then you'll be out of there. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, so it shouldn't be that bad. And the meadow means I'll have sunlight. Yay. Okay, so I can charge my phone, all that, so I can start letting people, the Delta know and all that, change my flight. So it turns out, this is why I got to stop listening to people. It turns out one meadow turned into 4 meadows, and one little forest turned into multiple forests, right? Every time I hit one of those meadows, storm clouds start rolling in, and there's no sun. I get to one meadow, storm clouds, right? I get out of the meadows, I start going to the forest, sun. I come to the next meadow, and I finally make it to the one I believe I know what she was talking about, and it wasn't slightly up. That sucker was I remember she was complaining about it, and now I could see why. Like, if you're in the sun hiking up that sucker, that would have been awful. But again, It was thunderstorms, right? So now I go, okay, you know what? It's not about trying to charge my phone out. It's trying to beat this thunderstorm to get out of here. So I am hiking as fast as I can to make it there. And I finally start hearing the road I'm like, ooh, I can hear the road now. Of course, like any good trail, they tease you with it. You get close.
Oh, yeah.
All right, no, back.
Mhm.
We're gonna give it a no, cut back. We're gonna get down. We're gonna have you go all the way down the stream first. Then we're gonna have you come right back up to where the road is. So I make it to where that road is, that we ended at with 19E, and it starts raining, pouring torrential rain. And so Dave had said, like, if you can, when you get there, just call me and I'll come pick you up. And of course, I don't have cell service or anything. And it's a 15-minute walk up the side of the road. I was like, this is what we're doing. So I just put my pack on. I hiked up the side of the road to 19E. And I walked inside and I go, I need to shower. And I need that wicked weed beer right there. And he goes, that's a good shower beer, son. That's a good one. You're going to like it. It's like I was like, just give me the shower, man. He's like, all right, let me show you. And I go upstairs to the hostel.
Give me a shower, man.
I go out there. I took a nice shower and everything, and I went downstairs, and I was so hungry. I ate one of the Reubens. I ate a small sub. I had a whole basket of fries, and I had 4 beers. And I was still hungry. I'm like, that's how many calories I burned out there. It was just moving as fast as I could out there. Like, I want to get to the end here. And I had to. Like, I didn't want to be out there another night. I had another couple of packets of food, like a breakfast and some granola bars, stuff like that. But I didn't want to have to deal with that out there. Yeah. So yeah, got back, ate all that. And Dave goes, he goes, did you miss your flight? Did your mommy called and miss your flight? I was like, I know that wasn't my mom that called. I know who knows my flight. And she was worried. She had every right to be, because Chrissy had heard from me for a couple of days because of the lost signal and everything. She had every right to be worried. It was just the way Dave did it.
Valid concern.
It's a very valid concern of being like, he's missing his flight. Yeah, like, she just got every right to be.
Mommy call?
It's just the way Dave walks in while I'm eating the sandwich. He goes, yo, did your mommy call? I just
context, everybody. When we did, when Dylon and I and some buddies did a section of the Appalachian Trail, we had a shuttle service lined up for us to pick us up at the end of that. That was 3 nights, 4 days, or something like that. And when we finally finished our little expedition, our shuttle didn't respond back to us. We were like, we'd just gone through hell, and we finally get to the end of our trip, and we're like, oh, sweet, because it was going to be getting dark soon. And we looked at all the services, and all of them were like closed. Dave was the dude that picked up. We just Googled or whatever we did and found him, and he came and picked us up. And that guy he owns a really cool hostel. Dylon's kind of describing, but I bet you that guy's seen some shit. You can tell from making a joke like that. His bar for what like a cool or gnarly story has to be so high.
So high, yeah. Especially all the type of throw. I mean, that mark right where I think it is about probably 420 miles. Right about that from where the beginning is, and that was cool too. Along at the shelters, there was these like little notebooks in packets, and through hikers would write in there the date, just something to say, and then just their name. So that was pretty cool.
Kind of like a poop log, but for hikers.
Exactly. I signed it a couple times. It was cool. First day I was just like bad storm. Second day knee surgery, pushing on. Boom. Yeah. The second day I rode a little bit longer. I was like, way more respect for you through hikers. And I tell you what, by yourself hiking, the through hiking is, you kind of start probably as a crew, or you move along, you make it up to the next crew, or another crew catches up with you and you're hiking with them. When you're just out there by yourself, you're like way more hyper aware of just things that might be around you. Like one time I was just hiking along, and I still don't know what it was, but it was like a big bird or maybe a deer or something, just off the trail, like jumped and like got startled and just ran up the hill. I still don't know what it was, but it was something like I think it was a turkey. Personally, I think is what it was, because it sounded like big feathers. And it just got a little startled.
Bird, actually, I don't know if you remember that. We saw there was I can't remember. We ended up looking up. It was some kind of like pheasant. I don't know if pheasant's the right word, but it was like a turkey kind of thing. We saw them when we were hiking. They were like just native to that area, but they would
just
hang out
one
in the trees.
Yeah. This was on the ground, so that might have been what it was. It just sounded a little bigger, but it sounded like it had wings. But it startled the hell out of me. You know, you're just hiking along by yourself, and boom, you know.
Yeah.
And I only ever saw 2 people on the trail, and it was those two ladies. And so that just kind of shows like all the thru hikers are gone. The only people out there are just kind of like people like me that are just, hey, let's go pick up and do something. You know, I sweated the entire time out, because since it was dense forest, it was also, you know, it was cooler. You know, they were complaining about the heat. I was like, this is kind of nice, cooler weather, but it was also so humid back in there.
Sticky,
humid. Everything was wet by the end of the day every time I hiked in it. And yeah, so it was just like decisions, just maybe like that first night of the shelter, I probably should have stayed in the shelter with that humongous thunderstorm, because I talked to one guy that was staying he was coming from the opposite direction. I talked to him when I was at the station, and he had the storm around like 7:00, 7:30, whereas I got the storm at like 2 a.m. That kind of tells you like the difference of where we were.
Right.
And he was off and on, and yeah, he was like, that was crazy of how bad that storm was. And then the lady, she was on top of a bald when that happened. She didn't expect that storm to come through either, and she was on top of like a bald out there coming from the other direction. She was like, I thought literally I was going to get struck by lightning, because I'm the highest thing out there for a while. I was like, that was terrifying too. And then I talked to another older couple. They were like, we were in our house, and that was crazy.
Those balls are no joke too. If you even just get mild wind, you're so exposed that like if you don't have your guy lines out and your stakes down, you're the thing holding your tent down.
Yeah, 100%. Like you will be ripped out. You get out of that tent, it'll be gone unless it's staked down really well in there. So yeah, she was coming from the opposite direction. I was the only one coming from the north going down. So that was interesting. I guess a lot of people, the route to do it is to come up and go the route that we did it, going south and going north. Right. That's really the route to do it. But I wanted it to do it the way it wanted to line up. I just needed to get the shuttle to there, and then I'd hike back down to my truck, basically. But it was so funny. Like, I'm way more hyper aware. I'm cursing up the storm because I'm like, you know, I want to get there. I don't know where I'm at, blah, blah, blah. I finally get to the end. I get my shower. I get my, you know, some beer and food. And I had like this huge hiker's high that I was just like, I want to be back out there now. You know, now I got a little bit of comfort again. I got, you know, I've rested up. I could see why, like, through hikers enjoy, you stop at a hostel, just rest up a day or two, get back out there, because you just need everything to get comfort again, and then you keep going. But in my mind, I was like,
and gear makes the biggest difference for that too, right? Like if you would have,
100%.
If you would have been maybe 5 or 7 pounds lighter, you know, had like quick dry gear, that probably would have added a couple.
And the crazy thing is I did have quick dry gear, and it still wasn't drying out there.
Really?
That's what, it was just like that part of the forest is just dense with humidity. But yeah, I wish I could, if I had more time to prepare, I would have knocked off probably another 15 pounds easily of like what I did and didn't need. If I could have, because what I wanted to plan on doing was getting there and talk with them. Like, hey, what's going to be on this forest? Like, what am I going to need? I would have known that. I would have left the sunblock all behind. Probably would have left my solar charger behind, because I probably would have realized I didn't need it. Probably a few packets of food or something, because then I knew I could have made it out by Friday, hike quicker, stuff like that. But with all that weight I was carrying, though, it did help with, because what I'm going to have to carry in California, I'm going to be hiking with about 50 pounds probably, because we're going to be out there for an entire week, and most of our weight's going to be from our food that we have to take with us back there. So it did help kind of train my knee. I did hyperextend my knee once when I stepped down, and it just like kind of like if you've ever seen the people when they're doing leg presses and they straighten out their knee, they make a mistake of doing that and they cave in a little bit.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened was I stepped down with a straight leg and it just caved in a little bit. But
That's a fun
I think
feeling.
it's fun. Oh, that was on the second day I was trying to get to the second shelter, So
That's the worst because you're like the anxiety is the highest between that step and the next step when you're like, is everything okay in there? And the only way you can figure it out is by just taking the next step.
And I'm back there. There ain't no one else to help me. I was just like, I have to just find out. Can I make those steps? And I just started doing it. I'm like, all right. And then I realized like, okay, I can't, when I step down, I can't forget that I have this problem. If I forget I have this problem, which is easy to do while you're getting your motion, you'll do it again.
Yeah.
Right. So I have to, every time I go to step down, a stair or something, I have to just take it easy going through it. It was kind of interesting too, being by yourself out there. It turns out you can hear a tree when they fall. I was just standing on that ridge over my fire. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and I just hear, you just hear, boom, out there. And then I was like, that was a tree that just fell. It was way down the hill, but I heard that sucker. I'm like, that's what that sounds like out in the forest.
Dude, that's just a really powerful reminder. I mean, I have a couple more questions I want to ask you around that, but like, you're getting me jazzed up to want to go out there by myself.
I'll go back out there again. It was awesome.
Yeah,
sure. By yourself. I mean, it's pretty intense by yourself. I'm just glad I knew kind of like what to look for when things with like water and stuff. Like, all right, I know here, blah blah blah. But it's just you're just a little bit more hyper aware. The lady that I stayed with in the shelter on the third night, man, she had a couple bear stories. Like where like there was once a bear like fake charged her. Like she was hiking and a bear she saw running up towards her and she like sort her sticks out and it just like kind of came up to, I probably say like 10 feet for what she showed me, came up to her and then just blazed off and kept going. And what people said was it probably wasn't like, it was probably either there was cubs in the area or a food source it was trying to protect. And it was just like testing you.
Doesn't fucking matter. There. Yeah. I mean, it's a bear doing bear stuff. You don't want to be around that.
Like, oh man. And she had a couple other bear encounters. I'm like, I don't know if I want to stay in the shelter with you here tonight if you're coming up with these bear problems.
What's the policy on any trail really in regards to guns? It's
you can bring a gun out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people like doing that on the AT, especially farther up north when you get farther back in the woods. Because people will jack your shit. Sometimes people get desperate, because they've have not brought enough food or something, and they'll try to like
I
push
had a
you.
friend.
To
I
get
told
food.
you about that, right?
Yeah.
My friend got her pack stolen on the first night.
I told that lady about that one too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, but back to the gun thing, like you would really prioritize a gun for a bear, I would think.
For sure. Really to protect yourself from an animal or.
But the thing is,
whatever.
like, you also have the weight thing. So it's like, ideally, you'd want to bring something like a featherlight gun.
Yeah, but it's like that's really just the noise to scare it off. It's not really going to take out a bear.
It's not going to have enough of an impact, like unless you hit a headshot, right? But
you're going to
may
not. You got to really hit it. It might just bounce off the skull. Those things got a tough skull. It's like I probably akin it to a cattle skull. You have to hit the cattle like right here in order to get it. It could just bounce up.
A cattle skull, even if it's straight on, it won't kill the cow. It'll just put it in a bunch of misery. You got to hit a cow behind the head.
That's right.
You're thinking of the cow punch, that steel rod.
Punch thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's what farmers use, just that.
So yeah, that's really just to scare it off. I think a lot of people like the gun when they get farther up into the mountains. When you start getting to past Virginia area, that's when it can kind of get a little.
So
hectic.
Reflecting back on that, what would you say was a high point? What was your high point moment and your low point moment? Because when you're out there with your thoughts, man, I'm sure you were just doing some. It was like it was probably like a walking meditation of sorts, huh?
Yeah. So the low point moment, I would say, was when I was trying to get to that second shelter, and I've had that knee pain today, and I'm like pushing through, and I don't know where I'm at. I just know, like, if I stay on this trail and get to it, and I was probably like, I don't know, it was probably 8 miles into it, and I believe I was another mile to go, and I just sat down, and I just had to, like, do I continue or do I need help? Like, is this going to be a problem? Like,
Start
and
checking in with yourself.
I had to do a check-in with myself. Like, all right, is my knee good? Okay, we're good here. Is this good? I have food. I've got water. I know how to survive. I know how to do this. Just keep pushing through. And it was really my mind just like trying to push back on me.
Yeah.
I was like, no, we can do it. Like, we don't need a rush. We can just take our, and I literally had to tell myself a few times that, because I want to keep hiking as fast as I can, but I had to tell myself, like, we're not in a rush.
There's no one there to pace you.
There's no one there to pace me. That was the biggest part of it, was like, normally I have people I'm walking with to be paced with.
Yeah.
And I always told myself I wish I could hike more by myself so I could pace myself. And I'm like, here you are, man. You're here.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing it. Pace yourself. Like, you don't have to, and I would, which was cool. I would start getting to a rhythm. And I start going up hills. I started getting acclimated to the level. 3,000, 4,000. I think that my peak I hit was 5,000 something out there. And so,
do you have a Garmin or any kind of like watch on you to kind of?
No, and I forgot it. I have one, but I forgot it. If I would have had that would have.
That'd be some cool data to look back on.
100%. That would have been cool data. I wish I had that. But yeah, and so that was probably the lowest. Yeah, that would have been nice. The lowest part, and I thought I got the right map when I was at REI too, and I did not get the right map.
Well, the Garmin's, I'm saying, they'll put the all trails, they'll put the map in there for you.
Yeah. So I got the, that was probably my lowest point, where I had to like tell myself, like, no, you're out here. You just take your time. We're not hiking fast. There's no rush. You got everything you need to survive right here. I'm like, you could drop on you could stop right here and you'd be fine. I kept telling myself, should I stop for the night before I get to the shelter? And I was like, no, just keep going to the shelter. We'll make it. I think the high point was that first night right before the storm came crazy in. I was just like, I got a moment to relax and just enjoy the evening, like being out there, solitude by myself. Like, we're doing it. We're doing something I've always wanted to do, which is hike by myself on the trail. Kind of get a mindset of what this is like. And the other second half of that mindset, the high point, was when I was at the station getting that hiker's high of being like, oh, this is what that feeling is like, oh, I want to get back out there. I want to push. I want to keep going, going like, I put myself through this. I made it through it mentally, physically, everything. And I'm like, and now I want to get back out there and just keep going, And so I think those were my two high points. That was my low point, was just like, my body and my brain telling me one thing and me having to tell it, like, no, we've put ourselves, I am putting us through this. We are going to do this. We are going to make it to where we need to go.
Yeah. It's beautiful, brother. Good job. Congratulations.
Hell yeah.
You earned
awesome.
that, man.
I get, and much respect to like through hikers, man, like those guys just, and there's all different ages I've met out there as through hikers, from young people all the way up to people in their 40s, 50s that are doing it. I mean, 70-year-olds that are out there through hiking, and they have a willpower to just keep going, and it's so tough to do the AT trail out there that over half of the people quit once they get to basically Virginia, which is the halfway point. I mean, a lot of times even before then, most people quit. That was why I was talking with someone why there's not more there's tons of hostels down in the southern part. There is the northern part. And it's usually probably because his mindset was because, so many people drop off by that point, the money just isn't there as much anymore to keep it going. Like I think he said there's a point where there's like 60, 70 miles where there's no hostel. And you just have to like figure it out between there and there.
That's tough, because you're talking about a week. I mean, a through hiker's probably doing, what do you think, 13 to 18 miles a day?
Through hikers are like doing probably about depending on what's going on, it's a wide range, but 15 to 25 miles a day. That's about the range you're looking at.
Well, because those granola folks, man, they pack light. Those are a lot of the tarp tents, because those are a pound for their tent. They'll just stake it up in an A-frame.
Some people just do a tarp.
That's what I'm saying, just an A-frame tarp, and so they have the tarp over them, and then they have like a really thin, but it's like really durable material that they'll lay on the ground. They
don't have a lot of. I mean, they're not carrying a lot of the food that they're carrying is like. I mean, frankly, like Skittles, gummy bears, like it's beef jerky. It ain't. I was out there with Mountain Houses. Yeah, and I enjoy those, and I'm getting. What is it? 500, 800 calories out of that. They're carrying like candy and stuff because it's going to be packed full of calories and just something to have. That's one, light, and it's cheap. They can't. Mountain Houses are like
on the body though. I mean, I had a client.
And it's expensive.
I'm saying when you're doing that, when you're sacrificing real nutrition, like real calories for false calories. Because I mean, I get it that sugar is going to translate to fat, and I would imagine that their bodies aren't going, they're not going into ketosis because it's sugar, right? But it's that's what
in their mind, their nutrition's coming at the hostel.
Right.
They're like, I'll get a nice sandwich, I'll rest up for it. Because that's why they have at these hostels, they'll have the beds and stuff because they can chill for a day, re-up their nutrients, that if you noticed when you looked at the food on the hostel menu, it was very like greasy.
Yeah,
sandwichy, like
that's
very
what you want too. I'm not fucking rolling into a hostel looking for a salad, and grilled chicken. Fuck that.
No. So that's where their nutrients is going to come from. So if they're pushing 20 miles a day, let's say, right, and there's hostels every 20, 40 miles apart, they could skip a hostel and within a day or two make it to the next one.
Right.
Get their food. So they're just like. Load up on candies, whatever, cheaply at the hostel, feed on that for a couple days, and then get to the hostel and eat some nutritional food, get some rest, stuff like that.
The next trip we do, though, I mean, we definitely got to put something in the books and start planning that because I'm stoked. I got some new gear, and one of my indulgence was the packing chair. I got that for when Michael and I did our last trip.
That's what I took on this, too. It was very nice. I
mean, you get this is pretty cool that our episode's kind of around the camping because we haven't really gone in depth on this stuff, but like when you're doing backpacking, once you get past 2 nights and you start to get into 3-4 night trips, you really are prioritizing weight above anything 100%. Else, like weight and really good gear. And the unwritten rule is you have one indulgence. For some people, it's flip-flops for walking around the camp. That was my first indulgence. And then once I passed somebody on the trail that had this ultralight tripod chair, man, that thing, it is sweet. When you can just get off your ass and you don't have to drag a log over, you don't have to like turn a bolt, like push a boulder over to your fire kind of deal, or just sit on the ground. Like I'm not a big, you'll see a lot of people with the foam mats too. That's another indulgence.
I started with that one. I started with that one. Then I got to the stool that would just open up in the tripod. I have now gotten to the Big Agnes. It's got a back to it.
The back one.
And my God, the back one adds a whole nother depth of luxury because most things you just sit on out there, you either have a rock or a log that you're going to be leaning against. And so that's my new indulgence now. It's about.
Did you get the Featherlight or like the REI kind of like middle of the
Featherlight? I had the REI one too.
Yeah.
And that one's good, but the Featherlight.
How much was that chair? What'd it go for?
It's between
price is right. Hold on. I'm gonna go $179.
That's what you're looking at for the REI one.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
You're looking at probably about $300.
Yeah, that sounds
300,
right.
maybe
camping
even
gear is
more.
always like 40% more than what you want to pay for.
It's like it's about 2 pounds to carry it, but it's sturdy, and it's like if this is what you want, this is it right here. We designed it.
What kind of bag do you use? What kind of sleeping bag?
It's a Nemo, goose feathered, very light, packs down to like this, less than a pound, 30-degree weather, like very
Nice.
light. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that one. And then the tent I take on the big trips is 1 pound. It's one person tent. I can't pull all my equipment in it. It basically just fits me in there and my air mattress, and that's it. And it's very, very, very light. And then I had a Nemo air mattress until this sucker popped, so I gotta get something else now.
That's the next thing I'm gonna upgrade. I'm gonna upgrade my pack and my sleeping bag, because for 3-night trips, I'm cool with the pack I currently have. That's the one I backpacked in Europe and Asia and South America with, but it's really designed more for hostile backpacking than it is hiking.
If anyone's ever curious on the backpack, and I recommend this to you too, as well as Osprey, that's really a good one to go with, because they have a backing to their agreement. If it doesn't, basically within the year, if it has malfunctions, they'll get you a whole new one. And I had one that I had for multiple years, and it started squeaking. Remember the one I had? It was squeaking on the trail a lot. And I finally, I started doing a bunch of research.
It took me so long to forget that. Literally every time I thought of that trip, it was like it was equivalent to someone having a squeak in their shoe when they're walking. It was and at one point in our journey, because we were the ones pacing our group, and Michael, I mean, we'd all kind of change out, right? You'd go to the back, or whoever would filter back to make sure our boys are good. But when you and I were just up front, and like you get in that daze where you're like, okay, we got 3 hours. You know, we did our last water stop, and it is just 2.5, 3 hours of just hiking, and you just kind of it's like when you're in a road trip, a 12 or 14-hour road trip, and you go, hey, we see the finish line here. I just think we're gonna shut the fuck up, and we're gonna get where we're going. And then when I was in that daze, and you and I were up, it was some portion, and I was hearing that squeak. It started to turn into a beat in my head, because your mind starts doing just wonky shit once you're on like 10, 11, 12 miles, you know. And I was just like, I'm like, remix that shit.
Bring it back, round it back. Yeah. So I did a ton of research. There's only a few areas where I found like people saying they were having similar problems, but Osprey couldn't figure it out. And so I contacted Osprey, told them I had the squeaking pack, and they're like, just send it in to us. And they're like, we can't solve it. We'll send you a new pack. And I send it in to them, and they're like, we're just going to send you a new pack, buddy. Yeah. Like, so same pack, same thing. And they just sent me a new one. And I kept doing some more research, and I found out from somebody, there was the only one area I found that could have been a solution was, I guess Osprey had, for this particular pack, had 2 manufacturers making it and one only made a small supply of them. And if you got this small supply from this one, then it could have been the squeaky ones for whatever reason causing that. Because I remember I was shifting the pack. I was doing things that Osprey was telling me to do. I was moving things around in the pack. At one point I just smashed the bag against the ground. Like, just
was it an internal frame or external?
Internal. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not like I could like adjust the frame too much. So at one point I just smashed it on the ground and smashed it at a tree to try to like throw it off. And it just kept squeaking still. And
all reliable.
Reliable. So
you can get rid of chlamydia, but you can't get rid of me.
Squeak, motherfucker, squeak. So it was just, you know, and I had it for several years, and they still replaced the whole thing, right? Like Osprey's like lifetime guarantee is very nice. And the other one I think is called Garrett or Jared or something like that. Starts with a G, I think. They're another good one too. But Osprey, it's hard to beat that because they'll fit you too. They have ways to customize it and everything. So
I mean, that's what my current pack is. I just want to get. I think I currently have a 50 or 55 liter. I think I want to get like a 65 would be perfect with like an external frame. 65, that's a big one. You know, for that, if you're gonna do a big, that's like a good 4 or 5 day trip. Yeah, I mean, exactly. But like, you rather, you know, have the room for what you want. You know what I mean? Picking up pine cones.
That was true. Like on this one, I was maxing out my pack. I think it was a 50 liter. I was really maxing it out on what I carried back there.
And it's just for mine where like when I pack down, I don't know if you remember my tent, my bag, like those compressible packs. It's just not really designed because I have like 3.5 pound camping sleeping bag, and my tent I think is also 3.5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So the clips aren't really designed. Like it'd be a perfect kind of through pack for like a shorter not really. I mean, yeah, so it's just not ideal for I want to do like another 4-day journey. And the Appalachian Mountains, man. What was the climate like? What was the average temperature?
It was about, during the day, it went from like 85 to 90 is about where it was. At night, it got down into the 50s. Oh, more mushrooms than I have ever seen, by the way, ever. This was the perfect climate, heavy rains, every other foot, a whole new mushroom.
Do you see any of them that were bruising blue?
Not that were bruised and blue. I thought I saw the Santa Claus, the red top with the white on it, and I was like, I want to pick you, but I don't want to pick you because I don't know what's going to happen there. So it's like, I want to leave you. But I saw a bunch of yellow ones. Interesting one I saw, which I haven't seen before, were green top ones.
Huh.
They were white with green, dark green green on the top. Those were neat. I'd never seen those before. Saw several were like big, like fungus looking things growing out. There was the biggest mushrooms I've ever seen on this trail. I'm talking like that, like out there. Like they were fresh too. There were some of I don't know. They weren't turkey tails off the side of trees, but they were like they're big red ones growing off the side of the trees.
Mm-hmm.
You could put a whole football on there, and the football was still smaller.
Those like really hard red ones.
Yeah.
Like don't, and they're not going anywhere.
They're not going huge on the side of the trees. I saw the biggest mushroom batch I ever saw. I'll send you a whole bunch, but at least for this one, I think I was able to get a picture before it cut out.
Like, I gotta prioritize my. Oh, look, a mushroom. Let me take a picture. I gotta worry about my battery, but
for sure.
I mean, that's the perfect climate for them, though. Especially if it's moist,
perfect.
Dead wood everywhere.
I mean, it was just like along the trails, just popping out. Like you could see the ones that were fresh because they were pushing up through the leaves. Like, but there was one that was just, and then there was a one area where I remember how you talked about. It almost looked like someone took it out of like this whole mushroom bundle and just took it out of a massive tub and put it next to this rock. It was like that big of just, it wasn't one mushroom. It was a whole batch of them, just huge. It was beautiful. I stared at that sucker for a minute, but man, it was a mushroom lover's dream back there, seeing all different kinds everywhere.
What would be really cool is talking to one of the mushroom hippies, like the mycologists that love going out there and foraging. It'd be sick if we could like organize, a camping trip where it would somehow align at the beginning, where we could go out there and forage with someone like a mycologist and then give us like a definite understanding of what can and can't be eaten. Because the big puff balls, have you seen those? The big white ones?
Yeah,
those are in a lot of videos of people that eat those. They get like soccer ball size. That'd be cool if we could go on a camping trip and make a meal with some mushrooms.
That'd be cool. Some of them I was hitting as I was going along. I would tap them with the pole to knock those spores out.
Oh, did you have walking poles?
Yeah, I had walking poles out there, so I'd try to tap them every now and then. Some of them were just so big that you would tap them and a hole of port, they would just fall out onto the ground. That's how big it was. They were just boom underneath.
You're like actually helping the mycelium, but for me, every time I'm like, because when you knock them, I mean you're helping them do their job, but you also kind of feel like an asshole kicking over a sandcastle.
Well, every now and then I would definitely like hit one and it would knock over and I'm like, sorry, buddy, just keep going.
Little do you know the mycelium sending through the network up ahead, like, hey, watch out for this.
Screw that guy.
Yeah.
Some of them you get them though. You hit up top, boop, and they just jiggle. And you're like, I got that one. Turned into a game after a while of hitting it. But yeah, some of those were just massive. Like some of them were really pretty too. Big red and orange ones. Like you wouldn't see those too often. They were pretty big round. and bigger than a hockey puck. Like, it was cool, and those were cool to see. Every now and then you get to see one of those. That would neat.
That's probably a fresh change because here in Texas, I mean, we've just been in the hundreds for the last like 2 weeks, so everything's like dry here. And I'm going camping for my 30th on Tuesday, but we're just gonna take the RV and go out to like a waterfall kind of spot or whatever.
Nice.
But man, I'd love to do something like that where getting in the forest and being able to like harvest mushrooms as we're going along, kind of thing. Just bring a net. So you just put them in the net and it spreads the spores as you go.
Hundreds. I mean, uncountable hundreds of how many there were out there. It was wild. It was cool because it did hard rain a couple days. So they were all fresh, bright, lively. You know,
You're
it was
like,
cool
fuck
to
the rain.
see.
The mushrooms are like, yes.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you made it back in one piece, man. And when's your trip to California?
That one's at the end of August. So that's the Immigrant Trail. We're going to go, we're going to hike that entire thing, Kennedy Meadows to Kennedy Meadows. Little hostel stops, and it'll be cool. It's about a 50 miler, I think. They're that a little bit more, minimum 50. I know that. So that'll be fun. It's a lot of, you know, it's not as much uphill, downhill. It's more of like, we're going to go uphill for a long time, and we're doing that. And then we're going to go downhill for a long time. We're doing that. It's a lot more predictable of what's to come. Sometimes
that's nice. I mean, well, when you're planning the trip, sometimes it's nice where you're like, hey, I don't know what we're getting into. And the trail that Michael and I did last was 27 miles. And we did that in 2 nights. And that was flat as could fucking be. I mean, maybe 800 feet of elevation change, but that was just grueling.
And it gets boring too.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because you're just like 1 foot in front of the other again and again and again. And
a lot of times too, those are the trails where they're like tiny because people are hiking that. They're just doing 1 foot in front of the other. So they're not very wide.
Exactly.
So
and it was all granite and like limestone exposed stuff. So like the only part of that where it got interesting is because we thought, hey, we're going to be out here and we're going to be done. So I think we're trying to knock that out in one night is what we're aiming to do. And then once we found out, like, hey, this is where we're supposed to get out of here, we were completely wrong. And so we're like, we have another 4 or 5 hours to go. And so we're on top of a granite bluff that was like 800 feet up. And we're like, I mean, Michael looked at me. He's like, what do we do, man? I'm like, here's the deal. I'm looking at the map right now. And based on what our maps told us so far, nothing has been correct. And I'm looking at that water. And I know that water we can drink. And in the woods, so it's like this granite bluff that just dropped straight down. It was like smooth granite, right? And then it kind of where it leveled off a little bit, it'd like go up a little incline. Where it was where enough trees had made footholds and dropped enough pine straw that decomposed that it kind of like had like a little bit of a buildup or whatever. And I was like, man, it's going to be dark in like an hour and a half, an hour. We have to make that flat. Like we got to go in those woods, dig that out and just make it work. And, I just scaled down the rocks to get the water and get back up. And Michael's job was to smooth stuff out. So we had a couple camping sites. And the cool part about that experience was like, there's always a highlight from a trip. And for me, it was definitely making a fire where I didn't feel extremely appropriate to make a fire, but the way the wind was blowing, we're cool. Cause all of the embers were rolling off of the granite slab. So like the fire would drag over the side. And we're like, all right, that's something.
That's cool.
Yeah.
The forest fire can start down there. I don't care.
We're like, hey, when it started shifting back towards us, we're like, okay, this could be this could be a problem. So we got to do something about that. But yeah, man. So stoked you made it back to us, and without any bear stories, that's always a plus.
That is always any trip without a bear story. You're doing pretty good still.
Yeah.
Many would say, and no bear horns. So I was appreciative of that as well.
Well, when you're by yourself, it's hard to set off a bear horn in the car because no one else is there to hurt with you.
mostly all brains when you're by yourself. So hope you got to enjoy this, everybody.
If you did enjoy this, please share it with someone you know that might love it. If you made it to the end, giving us a review means it counts, and that means we'll show up on your algorithm again. We love you guys, and we will see
Peace.
you next time.